All right, everybody. It is another episode of the Pirates podcast to be named later. I am Eddie Provident. With me, as always, is Alex Stumpf. Alex, we've got it's actually a lot of talk about today, and it's not all, I don't think any of it's bad.
No, I mean,
uh,
funny
I
things
think
happen
it's all
whenever you
good
get
stuff today.
funny things happen whenever you get to, just tee off against maybe the worst team in the American League for a series.
Yeah, yeah.
They play good ball.
Yeah, they look good. They look good for 3 games. I'm going to play dealer's choice here. We had two topics lined up, and I'm going to let you pick which one we go with to start.
Let's start with the manager because I think that's the big thing that's coming out right now.
All right.
Talked to Ben Charrington. This road trip is made available to the traveling media, and I asked him straight up, like, "Hey, last year about this time, you made a pretty, you know, firm vote of confidence for Derek Shelton as your manager. And the Pirates, they were just out of the trade deadline. A second 100-loss season looked to be on the table. That obviously ended up happening. It was one of those. But Ben at that point, like, squashed any. Is Derek Shelton's job going to be in jeopardy talks before they even happened? And he said, no, he's our guy for 2023. So I asked, do you still have the same vote of confidence? You could read the article on DK Pittsburgh Sports. It's all free to read now, so I don't feel guilty, saying any of that. He gave the full answer, but the $1 million one was after the answer. I'm like, hey, just so there's nothing is lost in translation. Do you expect him to be the manager in 2024? And he said, yes, full expectation, yes. That's a quote right there to wrap it up. So, Eddie, it comes down to two trains of thought, because I do see people who complain a lot about Derek Shelton, the manager. And I personally think he's done a pretty good job with what he's been given. And
I think
for the first couple of years, that was a lot of Yu Chang's and Ildemaro Vargas's and Josh Van Meters and Heath Hembreys and just garbage. Whenever I say what he's given here, it's a little bit of a different context whenever we can look at some of these young players who are coming up. And no, it hasn't always been smooth, but you do see someone like Leo Peguero, who, he's seemed to hold his own in the major leagues. Andy Rodriguez, not saying this is a final product by any means, but this is what's really going to determine if he is a successful manager, if this rebuild is successful. I think he's done that. He's kept the clubhouse. So with what he's been given, this has really been the first year that he's been even given, in my opinion, even a semi-competent major league roster. And I don't think that's, I don't think anyone's going to,
I think that's very fair.
Crucified for me to say that for a team that lost 100 games twice and had the worst record in baseball in the COVID season. So I don't know. That's where I am with it in general. I think this is the first real time he's been given a chance. And if you want to look at whenever those kids have come up, they've played above average ball for half a season or a quarter of a season. My apologies. That's a good sign going forward.
So I agree with everything you said, and I'm even going to take back some things that I've said previously this season. I know that I was pretty difficult on him about how he's handled pitchers, not letting, in particular, Mitch Keller go longer into games. I think that this season, seeing how Mitch Keller has gone, I think that with him being an all-star, and he hit a little bit of a rough patch, but I think overall, Derek Shelton has been proven right in how he's handled Mitch Keller. I think that him letting Johan Oviedo the other night finish a complete game shutout was a huge vote of confidence for a young guy and a very needed piece in that rotation. I think that I've probably been too difficult on him in how he's handled the pitching staff, especially given everything that you just said, that it hasn't always been a competent major league roster or rotation. We forget about this sometimes, but in baseball, they're not called coaches. They're called managers. And I think they're called managers for a reason. They're not only supposed to manage a game, but they're supposed to manage a team. They're managing a clubhouse. And I see growth off of the baseball field from this baseball team. I see, especially all of the young guys that you mentioned, I see growth in a lot of these guys. I see trust being built between Derek Shelton and these young players. And if that's the case, I think it's a better environment for them to grow as players and as people than it is to find somebody new and have to have them start all over again. So yeah, I actually, again, for a change, I'm with Derek, I'm with Ben Charrington here, and I think that Derek Shelton should be the guy moving forward, at least to start next season, and then you see where it goes from there. I also am excited to see him next season because I do think, assuming Cruz is healthy, we'll get into Brian Hayes, but Hayes and Reynolds and Piguero, like you mentioned him, a couple of pitchers that I think are starting to find their confidence. I'm excited to see what Derek Shelton can do with a roster that has a lot of raw talent. Can he help that gel together? Can he find, to use a Tomlin word, can he find some cohesion for these kids? Or is it just going to be a mess again and then we're back at square one? So I think at least at the very minimum, the start of the season, I'm with you. I think he should be the guy.
You mentioned something that and we'll get back on track here, but something I want to bring up that you just glossed it over here. The Oviedo complete game.
Mm-hmm.
Not to take anything away from Oviedo. Like that was an amazingly pitched game. That's one of the best pitch games I have covered, on this beat. Look, I've written a lot about him. I think very highly of him. I think he's part of this rotation going forward. But it was,
I agree.
For me, almost the story of the game was Andy Rodriguez. Just in the clubhouse, in the dugout, like, no, he's good. Let's go. And Shelton admitting, like, young catcher's feeling it, and Shelton's a former catcher, and he knows that's an important position that you got to lead on the diamond. He really pushed Jacob Stallings his first 2 years to be one of those team captains, be one of those leaders. Austin Hedges was someone else who was kind of given that, that nudge. And I see that with, Andy right now. Andy is obviously, one of the most liked guys in that clubhouse. I don't know how anyone can dislike that young man. So it's I like that. And that's part of the reason why whenever we talk to Derek Shelton as the manager, I like that he has the sound reasoning of he's at 97 pitches through weight. We already have seen, a bit of a dip of velocity these last couple starts. We want Johan to be able to go, make 30, 31 2 starts, this year. It's important for us. There's a laundry list of reasons why not. But as a player manager, like that, I think that was a really important moment. It's something that I don't know if 2022 Derek Shelton would have done, or 2021 Derek Shelton would have done, or anything.
I don't think he would have. Yeah.
So whenever we talk about having a manager who can lead these young players, I think that's an example, a real subtle thing right there of trusting the clubhouse, trusting the room, trusting your guys. And yeah, it was batter by batter. If he gave up a hit or two, sorry, Johan, we gave you a shot.
Yeah.
But the fact that he gave him that shot and Johan Oviedo came through, I think that's going to be one of the more impactful wins, whenever we look back on this year.
No, I agree 100%. And I think management is a lot of leadership. And leadership doesn't stay stagnant. And one thing that, you can say about Derek Shelton is he has, I think, grown as this team has grown, and he's changed to be what this team needs. Like you said, 2021, 2022, Derek Shelton probably doesn't let Oviedo finish that game. But 2023, Shelton listens to Endy. He sees what's going on, and he adapts. And I think that that's good because I think that now next year, if this team takes the next step like everybody hopes and expects them to, I think that they're going to go the way Shelton goes. I think that and I everything that I have seen from Shelton leads me to believe that he'll be able to get this team to that next step. Will I be proven right? I don't know, but again, he's got my vote of confidence for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. And just to touch some things here with Shelton and the coaching staff before we wrap up this first segment. This maybe wasn't that much of a shock, considering that he got an extension before the year started, or they had a deal mostly in place by the time the first week of the season was done. and they just built off of that. My understanding, it's not, it wasn't a long-term extension. Like this first deal was a 4-year deal. This one isn't. Like to my understanding, I mean, it obviously covers 2024. Uh, I don't have exact parameters, but just like the vibe I'm getting is it won't go beyond 2020. It's not beyond 2025 if there even is a
Mm,
2025. It's a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal or 1 year with an option, type of deal. So it's not like a long. It's still very much a prove it type of deal, but just with a little more security of,
yep.
hey, we like the path, we appreciate the path, and I think that applies to the rest of the coaching staff as well. I mean, no decisions have been officially made. There are going to be conversations at the end of the year between Charrington and Haynes, or I'm sorry, and Shelton. I'm a step ahead. So whatever comes to Marine and Haynes, uh, nothing absolutely set in stone yet. The way Charrington talked in Kansas City, I by the cut and the jib, some of the things that he said, I would expect Oscar's job to be pretty safe. I mean, things that they really care about, he has seen improvement in as a team. Haynes, I can't say as definitively, but I can say, just conversations that I had, this past off season, it was very much this guy did not get a fair shake, in 2022 because of COVID and the personnel. Uh, we're going to see how much that applies for 2023. But all year, I've kind of been saying live cues and stuff like that. It's like, when are they firing Haynes? And I've always been like, who says they're firing Andy Haynes? I mean, there's nothing definitive here. I mean, it is what it is, kind of. So I don't know if anything is. Again, nothing is 100% set in stone here. Is going to be the main thing here, but short-term extension for the manager. Team is still, unless they go 20-8, going to have a losing record.
If they went 20-8 in April,
if they start and finish 20-8, that's just objectively hilarious at that point. Like you can't even be mad. You can't even be mad at that point. So it's figure it out. Maybe there's some changes on the coaching staff. I don't know, but I kind of get the feeling that at least on the pitching side, they're going to run through. The hitting side, we're going to see a little more. But again, all year it's been kind of like, and again, that's not a knock on Haynes. I've maybe, I guess, as far as journalistically goes, maybe cross the line a little bit of like Haynes apologist of just like some of the accusations. It's like, well, no, that's not true. That's not true or anything. And it's not like this huge deal if, a player goes to an outside, source, for some extracurricular instruction, which is what happened, for one of these key players. We're going to talk about it in segment 2 here about the revival of Brian Hayes' bat.
All right, as Alex alluded to, Brian Hayes found his baseball bat. I believe he's batting he batted 320 for the month of August. He's got his season average up to 269, 270, 725 OPS, I think, and respectable numbers. 11 homers on the season. He's had 2 or 3 in the last in the last 5 or 6 games. Brian Hayes looks like he's comfortable at the plate. Alex, what's the epiphany here?
I mean, let's before we go, there's one stat I have to bring up. For those of you who aren't really in the analytics community, Baseball Reference has a stat called OPS plus. And if you know OPS,
okay,
it takes that, your offensive output, including on-base percentage, slugging, and the area you're in, and your home ballpark, and how much of your OPS is slugging and how much is OBP, and it rounds it up where 100 is a league number. And Hayes, at the time of this recording, on Thursday evening, on August 31st, in the year of our Lord, 2023, has a 102 OPS plus. So he is, by definition, having an above average offensive season, which if you watch those first 2 months of the year, boy, oh boy, that didn't look like that.
And now that brings me back to a conversation you and I had back in April. Where do we place Brian Hayes with an above average bat in the NL power rankings of third baseman?
I mean, again, I'm gonna just go straight to WAR here. I want to make sure I have it right. 100 games played, 3.3
Three
WAR,
3.3, right? Yeah.
and that's with missing basically a month because of
I
an injury.
studied today, man.
Yeah, you were ready to go. I just have the tab ready to go here. He 3.3 WAR with missing a month of the season. Like if he was fully healthy, and yeah, you can roll your eyes at that. Even if he's semi-healthy the rest of the way, he plays like he has, as a season, like just as an average batter, whatever. We're talking about a 4-win season.
Mhm.
That if he didn't miss that month to the IL, it could have been 5 WAR. Like he's,
Mm.
I think people still don't like that. Most of his value is stuff that you can't see, on the back of the baseball card. But like, I think this guy is one of the top third basemen in the league. I mean, how many third basemen are going to finish with 4 point something WAR? I don't think a whole lot. So I think that's a feather in his cap. This has been something that's been going on for a while. I mean, this recent hot star right now, he's ramped it up to 11, and some of that is he's been talking and with John Nunnally, who he worked with at the alternate training site in 2020, right
Mhm.
before he broke through. And obviously, everyone knows September 2020 Hayes was the best version. Like that's the best month we've seen from him. That's
Right.
one of the best months we've ever seen from a Pirates rookie. So it was more just they had conversations. Hayes was looking at film. Nunnally was looking at film. They have it's just talks. It's just finding someone to trust that you go through. But I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think it's as simple as that. And this is something that really began in the month of June. And if you want to look at Hayes's OPS from May 31st, if you want to call it stats gerrymandering, that's fine. But May 31st, he has an over 900 OPS. So whenever we're talking about, oh, he's only having 2 or 3 good weeks, it's like, no, he's having 2 good months. Like that means
Yeah.
something. Like if Hayes has a 900 OPS for the whole season, not saying it's going to happen, but if he were to have a 900 OPS over a whole season, I think this guy is an MVP candidate with what he brings with this season.
Yeah.
And like for 2 months, this guy has been, whenever he's been on the field, arguably the best player on this team. Like that means a lot. There's a reason why this guy was given that big extension. And I two things that I'm just gonna throw out here that I don't know if I've put in writing at any point. I heard that whenever they were considering the Hayes extension back in 2022,
Mhm.
one person in the organization was asked what they thought, because you got to take the temperature of a whole lot of people here, and they said, well, you got to sign him now because you're not going to be able to sign him whenever he starts hitting. And like it's a leap of faith, and obviously we're
True.
still only talking about 2 months whenever instead of like 2 years or whatever. Like there's still a long way to go, or at least a way to show you can maintain it, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Like maintaining and consistency is a huge part of this, but everyone knows this bat is in there. And the fact that he's consistently getting his contact point out in front, the fact that he's consistently driving the ball in the air and pulling it there, it's why he's having this great success right now. In that June conversation, I will also say Haynes and him kind of had a pretty good heart to heart from what I heard, like right before things got started
Mhm.
off here. So like whatever people were just like, it's 100% John Nunnally, and Haynes had nothing to do with it. I don't that's not the case. If you're willing to look at
Yeah.
whenever that OPS whenever he started to figure things out in June, which is something that Derek Shelton went on record saying like this started in June, and the numbers are since June have been really fantastic. That's where it started. Now, nothing against Nunnally. I really think very highly of Nunnally. I mean, whenever Jared Kruger and I did this podcast a lot, we talked about Altoona. We both think that he is a fine coach, and I would like to see him get a major league opportunity in some capacity as a coach.
Mhm.
I think that would make sense to Adam. I mean, he's coached a lot of these guys before, so. And then I'm going to let you get a word in here, Eddie, because I
You're good. You're good, buddy. They're here to hear
minutes.
you, man.
Yeah, but that's I think it did start a little bit with Haynes. Now, did Haynes take it the whole way? No, but like it doesn't always have to be the major league coaches. And I think this is a team and a staff that gets it, that are pretty open. That if Mitch Keller goes to tread and he finds his fastball velocity, that's fine. They don't have the Pirates coaching and development conversations I've had for years now. It's not always we've got to be the one that gets you right. It's we just need you to be right. If we have to share credit with someone else, if someone else comes in and they fix you and you just tell us what you're doing and we know where to look and we have a cheat sheet, we'll live with that if you have the good OPS and ERA. We do not care. We just want good baseball players. Go, Eddie. Go. So, I can keep going all day. I can do the whole thing.
I have another question for you. So, I mean, I'm turning it right back to you. Let's say that Brian Hayes, let's just say, sake of argument, he keeps his batting average. Obviously, I don't think that it's going to be anything, 320 for the rest of the season. I think that's a little outrageous to ask for. But let's say he's in the 290 range, right? And he manages to get his season average in the 280 range, okay, by the end of the season. I realize that the Gold Glove is a defensive award, but I feel like his bat has held him back some from getting the attention. Maybe not, the votes, but getting the attention that's needed to put him in that conversation. Now that he has a respectable bat, above average bat, do you think that he gets a fair shake at a Golden Glove vote this year, or does he have a chance to win the award? Because honestly, I still think he's a better defensive third baseman than any other third baseman in the NL.
I mean, even if the bat didn't come through, he'd have a shot. He's just that talented defensively. But right. The way, if people aren't sure of how it works, the way Gold Glove voting works is a percentage of it is strictly cold, hard analytics from the Sabre community, which, good, that should be a part of this. And the other half of it, or it is still more than half, is from coach vote. And who are the coaches going to vote for? They're going to vote for the guys, that really stick out and everything. So
and that's the thing. Like if you're batting 215, 220, you don't stick out. If you're batting 280, 290, now all of a sudden your name gets out there and you get a little bit more recognition.
You remember, Hayes just killed us that series. He hit 2 doubles, and oh my God, you remember those plays that he made? To his left, oh man. So that's the type of thing that you remember. So yeah, I do think, as stupid as it sounds, helping the bat does help the Gold Glove candidacy. I will also say that I think this is not a slouch on Nolan Arenado or McMahon in Colorado. I think Hayes is the best defensive third baseman in the game, and I think he's been ever since he's come up, to the majors. I get that it didn't happen in 2020. He missed half the year. I get that it didn't happen in 2021. He missed a third of the year because of injuries. But I still think that he should have won in 2022, and it for a lesser extent the fielding glove, the fielding Bible award, giving it to Arenado whenever Hayes had more defensive runs saved, just never sat right. Of you guys are supposed to be the strictly analytics point here, and you're admitting you're not going with the guy with the best analytics. Now, granted, Arenado's analytics defensively are off the charts. Any other position, he would win, for it. Mm-hmm. There's a case to be made that 2 of the top 3 or so defensive players in the league play third base in the National League Central. So that it makes it difficult to go through. I think Arenado still has the reputation, and I don't know if Hayes will win a Gold Glove just because of that reputation of just coaches just so it's instilled of Nolan Arenado is the best defensive third baseman in the league. Maybe it does change though, and if it's not 2023, 2024, I do think that the year that it's finally not Arenado, it's Hayes. I mean, if Hayes is healthy,
I hope you're right,
and Arenado does not win a Gold Glove, I would be pretty surprised if it's not Hayes, even if it's a couple years from now.
Well, let's take one more quick break, and I've got one more question for you. I'll put you on a spot again, but I got one more question for you. All right, Alex. So we talked about the end of the year and hoping that Brian Hayes can somehow pull off something with the Gold Glove. I think that would just be a nice thing for Pirates fans and the city of Pittsburgh in general, just to have something to hang their hats on for this baseball season because it started off so promising. And, you know, maybe I was sipping the North Shore Kool-Aid a little bit, but you know, when they were 20-8, and you did try to bring me down to earth, and I wasn't having none of it. um, but maybe how did this is my I want to see what you think about this. So unless there is an absolute catastrophe, they're not going to lose 100 games this season. I think
They would
they're at
have to
61 wins.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, they're at 61 wins. Unless there's an absolute catastrophe that's beyond anything the Pirates can do.
Everyone's getting fired if they lose 100 years. 100
So, my original. Sorry, my cat is deciding he wants to look in the window.
We're gonna get a
so
in the
yeah. So, assuming okay, let's go back to my record prediction was 77 or 78 wins. Okay. Your record prediction, I believe, was 72 or 74.
I can't remember if I said 70 or 72.
All right, we'll go with 72 since we both said 72 is an option. We'll just go with 72. So 72, 78. I think right now yours is more likely. Do they get to the 70 win mark? And what, in your mind, is the win total to make this season not a complete meltdown after how it started?
I mean, they've got. Well, let's do some back of the envelope math here. They have 20.
They're 61 and 73.
They have 28 games remaining this year.
Yep.
So 500 ball the rest of the way. I think if you do that, that's
14 and 14.
Yeah, that would be 75 wins. If you do that, that would be with the young kids coming up almost half the year, not quite half the year of playing 500 baseball. And you just write off it was in April where everything clicked, and then just May and June whenever the wheels fell off and some injuries happened. But you basically hold your hat high of good start out of the gate. Stuff happened. Then whenever things went full youth movement, they held their own. I think that would be. I mean, whenever you start 20,
all right, so
finishing with a losing record still not what you want to see. But I think that's the okay. Live with that. That's a head start, ahead of steam for 2024.
Okay, so if I would have came to you in March, said the Pirates were going to win 75 games.
I'm not answering this question.
No, but wait.
Because
if I would tell you that they were going to win 70, right, but if I was going to tell you that they would win 75 games with O'Neal Cruz being out for the major part of the season, I think anybody would have taken that.
Yeah, but then April happened.
The only difference is, but here's the thing.
They sat on their hands in May.
The only difference.
Prospects. If they would have called up all these prospects, I'm not saying they were going to play 500 ball the rest of the way, but if they would have in May, this team would still be in contention, and they wouldn't have sold off players at the trade deadline.
I agree. Listen, I agree. I agree with you 100%. But my thing is this: it just so happened that their hot month was April. If they went 20-8 in June, right? And they went 10-20 in April or 10-18 in April, nobody would be talking about this as a complete and total meltdown, right? So if you just take it month to month, they had a really rough May and June, and they should have did everything that you just said. I just want to maybe pump the brakes a little bit on how we talk about this team in a negative light, because I do think that there is some reason for optimism for 2024 with all these young guys. This is going back to raw talent, and I don't want to relitigate conversations we had already in the episode. There is a lot of raw young talent on this baseball team that's going to be on the field in 2024. And I'm not going to be shocked if this team is fighting for a playoff spot this time next year. to me, there's a lot to be excited about the Pirates. If you can remove yourself from what happened in May, I think that there is a lot to be excited about.
If they go 500, I'm not saying it has to be exactly 500, but roughly 500. But for round numbers, 500, you go 14 and 14. Your last 67 games, you go 34 and 33, and you hold your hat up high, saying, for almost the second half of the season with a younger roster, you played winning baseball. That's the reason for optimism. But as the year as a whole, you got to look at it as a year as a whole, and that's something that Ben Charrington said. So it's not like I'm, putting words that you got to look at the year as a whole too. Year as a whole too. Some of it is because of injuries. I'm going to give that as an out. A lot of it is because of injuries, but it feels like there is meat left on this bone. This could have been a bigger year. This was a year that even 2-3 years ago, I personally thought like 2023, this team, whenever these young players come up, they could be a competitive group. And whenever those young players did come up, like I said, winning baseball for a quarter of the season, that doesn't mean nothing. Like that, or that means something. However, wait, double negative to make that sentence
It's
make
possible
sense.
though. Yeah, it's possible though, Alex. I think that there could be meat on the bone for this season, but still being excited and optimistic about next season.
Yes. That the two are not mutually exclusive. Of you can be optimistic about the 2024 parts and think the 2023 parts could have been more. It's not
I
two
agree.
mutually
See, we
exclusive
agree.
things.
See, we agree as always, Alex. We agree. You got anything else for
Sure.
everyone?
You and me have different definitions of the word agree. That's how I'm closing this.
All right. Last quick question. A round of beverages is on the line with this one.
All right.
We'll put your number at 72 and my number at 78. 500 ball is 75, which puts us smack dab in the middle. Which means to get to your number, they've got to have a losing end of the season. To get to my number, they have to be above 500. Will you take me on a bet? If they get closer to 78, you buy the round of drinks. If they get closer to 72, I'll buy the round of drinks.
Sure. I mean, my risk reward here is either getting free beer or, a couple more easy gamers down the stretch. I view that as a win-win.
All right. We're going to virtually shake on it. And the next time I see you, I'll hold you to it.
All right.
All right. For Alex Stumpf, for DK Pittsburgh Sports, this has been a lot of fun today. I'm Eddie Provident. We will see you next week, same time, same place, on the Pirates podcast, to be named later.